There is a huge thing out now how 90% of all the farms in this country are privately owned and owned by small family farms. 90%. Okay? 90%. So that's a huge amount. It's only 10% are the big old agri farms. They're making all the money, unfortunately. But, and it's just like the economy and all the wealth, in this country, how, what is it, only 1% making all that money? Okay? So anyway, same thing at hand. But you're among a huge, huge growing, and Secretary Vilsack just released information out just recently how they are starting to now look at the small family farm as being the savior for the American economy.
Yeah. This thing is wide.
This just was announced last week.
Right.
You all are right in the thick of things. They're actually going to possibly tend toward, lean toward our family farmers like Cuba had to lean toward their family farmers. The family farmers in Cuba became the senators because they needed the first thing that they knew everybody had to eat. We don't have any gas. We don't have any oil. But everybody got to eat. Oh my God. Old man farmer, you looking so good right now. I know we took you for granted because they were importing over 97% of their food into the country. Okay? They were importing over 90% of their food into the country and exporting all the things that they normally grew, they exported it out of the country. And they were importing a bunch of rice and starches and all these things into Cuba. Nobody was growing food. The colorful plate, that's just like the state of Illinois growing all this corn and soybeans, but if you look at it on your plate, you'll be like, well, where's the meat? Where's the green vegetables? Where's the orange vegetables? Where's the purple vegetables? Your plate will look anemic if you rely on just the main commodities coming out of the state of Illinois. You're like, this isn't food. And then the food that's there, you can't even eat it. It's not even edible for human consumption. So, we are having a crisis, even in this state. I'm going to get to this whole farmer family. I'm waiting on our presenter to come. I hope he didn't get lost. He was supposed to be here at 8:30, 9 o'clock. So we'll see. Meanwhile, I'm going to see if there's another one here.
No matter what happens, everybody's got to eat. Now, Linda Borgie mentioned that drought in California. We're going to have record food prices. There's one city, Park Forest, south of Park Forest. They don't have any grocery stores in the city limits. They have a 41-year-old farmer's market, and they're begging for farmers to come to that market. So we're in the right place with the right business at the right time. It is essential. If things don't work out for this country, at least you'll have your own food at home. So, it's a no-lose situation for us. And unfortunately, things take money, so you should make money doing what you do, because you still don't have to pay money for food.
Can you come up here? No, I'm shy. Do you mind coming up here for a second? This is a lecture I did. I keynoted the organic fair in Savannah, Georgia. This was the year before last, actually. Yeah, Savannah, Georgia. Were you? Oh, at the organic conference? Oh, okay. All right, just hang out. Oh, okay. Fantastic. All right, do you mind pushing this button here? Thank you. All right. And then if I say go back, you just push this one. All right, thank you. Anyway, and the lecture was called Feeding the World While Starving at Home. And the reason why I put it together was because we're seriously in a crisis. We're talking about this crisis now in general, but part of the state work that I've been doing to push forward. Part of the state work I've been doing is to be able to recognize. We talked about these so-called food deserts, but we had to recognize recognized here in the state of Illinois that this state is a food desert, the entire state. Some of the things that we talked about, or that I mentioned was this deregulation and privatization. That's what caused a lot of the breakdown of the farms, okay, where you had a lot. The United States was relied on a lot of smaller farms up until the 1970s, okay, and then with a lot of deregulation and everything, that just really threw things chaotically and out of balance, okay. Then you had a lot of the ag businesses that started taking over. The big ag started taking over where smaller farms used to be beautiful. Okay. And here it is. You had the World Trade Organization jumps into the picture. The International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, the World Bank, and the Bretton Woods institutions. These were 1986 to 2000. And you can see how they literally turned the tables into farming and the ag business turned literally from $7.2 trillion to $27 trillion when Big Ag stepped in. Then when they realized all that money that could be made, they pushed all the smaller farmers out of the picture. Okay? Yeah. All right, go ahead, we'll keep going. All right, so here's the view of this theme started running throughout society and the nation about the role of a farmer. Basically, small farmers are not productive enough to feed the hungry world. And if you go up against any big ag person now, they're like, okay, yeah, you may be feeding a few neighbors, but we're feeding the world. And that's their model. They start pitching it around, we're feeding the world. So these commodity growers start coming around and growing all these corn and soybeans, and all that stuff has been shipped out and forced on the world, actually. Many of the countries they don't even want it. But because of embargoes and sanctions that the U.S. put on a lot of these countries, especially the third world countries, they forced them to you must take on our grain. You must take on our soybeans. You must take our rice. And they're forcing these commodities onto these smaller countries. And you know what it was in the name of? To get their oil or to get any of the mineral rights from those countries. That's what the U.S. was doing, unfortunately, and they started putting this huge thing on the small family farmer means nothing when you feed the world. So they got, on one side, what the public was seeing is all this big, huge shipments of grain going to third world countries, and, didn't it look very altruistic? Like, oh my gosh, we're feeding the world in such a big way. Oh, wow, man, those big farmers are doing, and the farmers who were being paid to grow all these things now became a victim or victimized by Archer-Daniels Midland, Monsanto, Cargill. Those became the big ag farmers. Those are the ones that people were working for. Those were the main folks pushing and driving all of these grain farmers and commodity crops to be produced, because they own chemical rights. So they can spray, they had a lot of chemical rights to pesticides, which was derived from oil. A lot of these are oil, big, huge. Majority of them they have their hand because they're, all embedded with oil. That's their whole main thing. All this is, petroleum. Okay? Petroleum wealth. Go ahead and continue.
Either oil and big machines, the pesticides, the fertilizer, all that stuff is oil-based. Mm-hmm. And big machines, the same raw material that we read about in high school, are the same people who continue to benefit. Bush, the oil people, and the big manufacturers, General Motors, Ford, and all those people.
And you can see everybody hears about the GDP, gross domestic product, and the GNP, gross national product. And all it did was it measured how many resources, all the oil, all of our experts, all of our expertise, all of our land resources, how much was that converted into commodities? And so this drove up. Hey Louise, the smart board is working. We thought we had to put another computer here, and I didn't think we downloaded the right information. So anyway, I guess it does work. Okay.
Now back it up.
Yeah, so back it up for me.
Okay.
When you're touching it.
That's it?
Go back one more to see. Yeah, go back. Oh, yeah. Wow, has it that many? No, yeah, no, I didn't know. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, so all of it was, the whole GDP, GNP, whole procedure is all developed and decided and determined on how much of all of our resources that we provide in this country to convert it into commodity crops so the big ag people can sell internationally. And they force the governments of these other countries to give them money. Meanwhile, the farmers who are growing these crops, the ones who I said had to get the $300,000 minimum requirements from the banks to get the big, huge $133,000 tractor, and the GPS satellite, system in the tractors, and they don't need but 2 people to run a 10,000, acre farm. Okay, those folks the only way they survive is by getting the loans or they're getting their welfare checks from the government. Remember, they don't make a whole lot, even though they're in bed, but it looks like it because all of it is in loans. They got big, huge tractors, they got big, beautiful homes, they got all this land, and they don't own the shirt on their backs. Many of them have committed suicide as a result. You can go forward. I'm not going to touch this anymore because it seems too sensitive. So, export-oriented agriculture. This is the society that we've developed over the since the 1970s specifically. But really it started in the 50s and started going from there. The 70s is when it went ballistic, and where people were fighting against the World Trade Organization and all those big national efforts. We became an export-oriented culture. Okay? High prices, yes.
Also, these farmers, these big corn farmers you see around here, they really don't make a lot of money. They owe. She just said she owe, but they also are getting cancer.
Yeah.
And they're passing it to their wives, and their children don't want to be in the business anymore. Then all the food production got concentrated to Joaquin Valley, California.
Yep.
That's why this drought is so serious, and it's going to affect all of us. Now, we may end up on the money-making end of the deal if we stick together, organize, and focus. Otherwise, we're just going to be paying a lot of big money for our vegetables, like everybody else.
89% of all the broccoli produced in this country comes from California, where the drought is. So y'all might want to plant broccoli.
50% of the vegetables in the whole country comes from Joaquin Valley. 90% of our vegetables in Illinois come from there. So it's going to hurt everybody. This is a national security threat that, the news will not talk about because they don't have solutions. Except we got solutions, but they're not ready to acknowledge anything weak. They want to front you off, and, when things crash, then it's going to be everybody for themselves.
And also, so not only did this society become export-oriented, but these same companies, they forced export orientation on other countries. All the productions like in Haiti, the reason why Haiti is so jacked up now, and you can go to the next one. This is a Haitian woman here, and they literally have to make mud pies. We did it for fun, but this is what they're using to eat. And they're asking pregnant women pregnant women are eating mud pies to get some minerals. The big cartels literally raped Haiti for their natural resources and all the fresh vegetables. This is a tropical environment. It can grow anything. Well, it used to be able to. So what they did was they set up all these monocrops all over Haiti. They made sugar plantations here or coffee plantations there. So you're talking about thousands of acres dedicated now to just, hello, good, come on in, Corey. You have a seat. This is Corey Chapman, everybody, coming in, so I'm so glad. So all these thousands of acres in Haiti are dedicated to producing these monocrops. Many of them you see at your own table. But what it did was it took away all of the ability for the Haitians to grow food for themselves. why so many people in Haiti are literally impoverished and they cannot feed themselves anymore because they did not get to the state where they could be they were able to feed their families. Everything was exported. Nothing was grown for Haitians anymore.
Can I interject? Also, that's the big problem in Africa.
Yes.
In Africa, they grow bananas and rubber, and in Europe, they grow food. In fact, Europe is really good at growing food. They have a lot of traditional stuff. Absolutely. And a lot of our organic ideas is originating in Europe.
Yeah.
But Kofi Annan, who's the former UN president, and Bill Gates are working with Monsanto to get African countries to buy seeds for plants that require lots of water and oil-based fertilizer. So these seeds can cross-pollinate and make all the plants of that particular variety dependent. And people have to pay for the oil, oil-based fertilizers. They got to be paid for. And in India, they had the same problem. And these crops would fail because they wouldn't necessarily have the water. And a lot of Indian farmers was committing suicide. And, people come in and say, we're going to help you out and all that. So we live in the matrix, folks. The world is really, you got to know, and they keep you from knowing because they got like Housewives of Atlanta and the music shows. Yeah, to keep you distracted. You got NFL and NBA and all that. So most of us really don't know what's happening. We really are out of all American people. It's not just the black people, it's the white people too. White people are being exploited. Anybody that's not a millionaire, part of the 1%, is fodder to make the 1% rich. And society's on a track where they're not making the necessary adjustments, like trying to give people local food on a timely basis. So you need to do this for your own survival and the survival of your children.
And once again, and thank you, Kamala, and the whole point that we keep re-emphasizing to you, when you decide to become a business person, you need to know your history, you need to know your business. So this is all about, we want to give you tools, but we also want to give you information because you have to become savvy, you have to know this industry and the reason why certain things are set up the way it is. So moving domestically, let's bring it in a little bit. We're on the domestic level. We're the largest supplier of global grains. That's why the Midwest is so proud, right? Okay, keep going. All right. So here we have, you can move past that. This was just showing the task force and what we were doing here in the state. A lot of people started getting together. We're talking 10 years, more than 10 years ago. It's about 15 years ago people started analyzing the situation, even here within the state of Illinois, trying to find out what's going on. Remember I was saying even that a girlfriend of mine, LaDonna, who's been internationally toting this whole, LaDonna Redmond, who's been toting this, her saying that when she started looking at the food system, because she needed to get fresh organic food for her son who had a lot of allergies, she couldn't get it. She said, I can get an AK-47 before I can get a red tomato. And living in the communities, in the Austin community areas where she was, where she had her family at, and she just did not have access to fresh produce. Coming down here to Pembroke opened her whole mind up as far as what the availability of produce could look like. So she started that whole mission of trying to get it. She was one of many soldiers. You had so many people here in this community that were soldiers, foot soldiers, trying to get more produce, trying to organize the farmers to produce more. John is one of our foot soldiers. We had so many here in this community as well, especially coming out of the Chicago area. And so we started the local foods councils were starting to prop up, okay? From there, we got together and we got the ear of certain administrators or certain senators to help us fight the cause. We were having businesses or meetings at University of Illinois. The agriculture, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, So what they were producing were people in the ag, their whole ag department were producing a bunch of students that are getting to the commodity game. He said he was crying because he said, we're graduating students that never put a seed in the ground. And this is supposed to be an agricultural school. He literally cried before our eyes. He was just that distraught. And he was feeling like his hands were tied, and what can we do about this? And that wasn't that long ago. So, and now, and even when I went personally to try to get a doctor's degree in organic production, in organic ag, there wasn't any nearby. Now they have it. They called me back too, a couple of years after that. But anyway, I changed my mind. Anyway, yeah, so from there we developed the task force, okay? And we called it the Illinois Local Organic Food Farm Jobs Task Force. We did listening sessions throughout the entire state of Illinois, trying to figure out where, and listening to all these local food groups and people on the ground level, like Donna Redmond was like, we don't have any grocery stores, we don't have, fresh produce access. You got all this food growing in the state, but everybody's starving. We don't have any fresh produce. We don't have a meal on our tables. So we did that. The task force developed the reports, and it developed the recommendations for the state. And we got the senators to approve it, and then the bill was passed. And the bill for the Illinois Local Food Farms Jobs Act was passed in 2009, with the Governor Quinn signing it into law. And that law stated that local food was going to be the primary focus, and we were going to change the way we dealt with the system here in the state of Illinois. Within 10 years, by the year 2020, we were going to have at least 20% of our produce was going to be coming from local farmers. Why 20%? Move on. 20%, that's all. Because you know what it is now? This is how it goes. Here, click on, and I'm going to soon be letting Corey speak. Yeah, go forward, please. Thank you. Right now, we got 26.7 million acres of crop land in the state of Illinois. 89% of it is soybeans that's non-edible. 89% of all crop land in the state is non-edible soybeans. 89%. I'm not even skipping a ton of weed. 9% is pastured. Less than 2% is diversified. That less than 2%. 0.2%. 0.2%. Do y'all see that? 0.2%. What is that? 0.002? Is that right? Huh? That's the only amount of produce that's produced in Illinois that's consumed by Illinois. That's it.
I got a question about soybeans. I know soybeans goes in food.
Isn't that interesting? What it does, 89% is non-edible. It goes to animal feed. So they're producing corn and soybeans that is actually going into commodities like animal feed, or you'll get it through the back door through a high fructose corn syrup, or it will be turned into some kind of glue, or other commodities that's not for human consumption. But then, if it's not edible for us, why are they feeding it to the animals that we're going to eventually eat? That's one of those moments. All right, but that's the game that's been played. Okay? Yes.
As a vegan, and an herbalist, I realized that the soy also is a hybrid plant, and actually, when you consume it on a consistent basis, it affects your adrenal glands in your body. So that's why a lot of people having thyroid problems and digestive problems based on consuming soy on a regular basis.
And actually, there's over 22 different types of soybeans. We're only exposed to one. There are black soybeans. There are soybeans that you can make you, lose your mind looking at. There are 22 varieties of soybeans, but we're only introduced to one. And that's part of the problem. And the one we're introduced to is the hybrid variety that's really pretty bad on the digestive system.
So can we get the other ones?
Absolutely. We have to find them. They're in other countries. You can export them in and try to grow them. Absolutely. Absolutely. Edamame is one. It's still the hybrid form that's grown, but edamame, fresh soybean, is better for you than the dried soybean. That we get in everything else.
In fact, almost 90%
didn't never test.
All right, so 99.8% of our food, because we're only doing 0.2%, 99.8% of our food is actually imported into the state of Illinois. Now, who has the biggest food desert? Isn't that a food desert? 99.8%. This is the state of Illinois back in the mid-2000s. It's a lot better now because of so many champions on the ground. But this is where we were, even as of 2009. This is where we were. Okay?
So that means a lot of opportunity for you as farmers.
Everything was imported, and the state of Illinois is spending $48 billion. And this is my reports of that, like I said, as of 2011. Believe it or not. 48 billion, it's like $54 billion now. $48 billion on imported food. Why are we spending $50 billion on imported food when we can grow it right here?
And we have some of the world's...
And with $15 billion in debt.
We have some of the world's best soil right here in Illinois.
Absolutely.
And we're exporting junk to every place else in that ground.
This is an old topic. Anyway, yes, so things are shipped in from California. Keep going. Only this little amount is actually, grown in the state of Illinois. And this is, I'm going to almost end here, but just letting you know, this is the state that we're currently dealing with. In the Middle East, 70 to 80% of the food, of their income, it goes toward food and oil. Remember when Egypt was having a crisis? Remember when Egypt was having a crisis recently and they were fighting a lot of internal wars going on in Egypt? It wasn't because they were disgruntled workers. It was because oil prices were going up, and oil equates to food. They could not put oil in their car, and they couldn't put food on the table because the food prices goes up every time the oil goes up. Remember the oil cartels run the show? Remember I just opened it up with that? Don't ever forget that. So when oil prices go up, you're going to find your food prices go sky high as well. Okay? Because they're in bed with one another. Remember Cuba had the oil crisis. They lost their ability to produce their food. They had to go internal.
They went organic.
The farmers
ended up being the top people in society, even more prestigious than the doctors.
Absolutely.
Because you got to eat. If you eat right, you might not have to see a doctor, especially in this country.
That's right. So truckers will strike over fuel costs. If the oils go up, here in the state of Illinois, this is where it's a food security issue. Because if oil prices go up, and we got 99.8% of our stuff trucked in. Let me see. Let me do this math. Okay, they can't put oil in the trucks. So does that mean that they can actually, which they've threatened many times, to go on strike? So if the truckers strike, we won't get our food. So how much food we have left in the state of Illinois that we can actually do? Yes.
3 days.
3 days.
3 days.
That's it. You have 3 days in the grocery stores. Unless you're producing your own, you have 3 days in the grocery stores. Talk about a civil war. We fight with cancer. So that's why we need 2 to 3 days for food stores max. So keep going, and I'm going to stop about here. It goes into some other things, and we've talked about here in the state of Illinois, there are not enough farmers. We have 75. Isn't that interesting? We don't have enough farmers still. We have 75,900 farms. This is as of 2011. Corey may be able to shed some light on how many registered farms we have, in the state. This is, like I said, a little bit of an older slide. But this is as of 2011. We had 75,900 farms in the state. 44% of them were making less than $10,000. Almost half of your farmers are not making enough to keep a living. And one of the reasons why is because, remember I said this is an export society? Your tax dollars, you have $1 million of tax money going into the export to supply or support the export business of our food and the infrastructure, to support the infrastructure, the export infrastructure of the state of Illinois. Not $1 goes toward supporting the domestic infrastructure. Not $1. Those are some of the things that we're trying to change even within the council, the state council. You do not have, when you talk to the Department of Ag person, which I did 2 years ago, they don't know what to do because they don't have a domestic infrastructure set up. Everything was built on export. So we have so much work to do, just the food security in this state of Illinois. One of the things we're doing is to grow farmers. 70,000 people are in Evanston, and when we did this report, we had 70,000 people was in the community of Evanston, and it needed 500 farms to support 70,000 people. 500 farms. We don't have it, so we have a lot of farmers, but we don't have enough of them producing at the level that they need to. Oh, I can't do it again. Yeah. All right, so that's one of the reasons why you're interested in farmers. We want to do every single possible thing we can to make sure that you're producing at the level that you possibly can, your utmost, whatever the highest capacity that you produce. We want you to produce. We need more people in this state to produce. It's going to be a matter of food security for everybody.
And even if you don't want to farm, if you got land, you should arrange for somebody to farm a portion of it. If you have a tourist business, then you should give them fresh vegetables from your land. If you have people coming, so food is essential. Back in the past, everybody was responsible for their food. Now we're building a built-up society that has, what do they call, diversification of labor. What do they call that? We don't all do everything for ourselves. But we do need for you to at least grow. Everybody in Pembroke should have a garden. So even if you don't have a farm, if you got enough land, you should take part of that and have somebody come farm and make some income off of it. And you need to know how to manage that. It's going to help you do that. We got tools for that.
So the state is doing a lot. From the council's efforts, we developed the Illinois Farmers Market Association. That was even going to the senators and getting that, in play. So now, because farmers markets have become a fantastic thing to be, program to be able to introduce fresh produce into those food desert areas. And food desert doesn't mean Chicago. Pembroke is a food desert. Pembroke is a food desert. That means that there's not a grocery store, so-called grocery store, within a certain amount of miles from this community. If you have to travel over 10 miles to get to the grocery store, you're looking at the food desert. Okay? And many of our people are starving right here in Pembroke, even though they have all this land. They're not producing. They're not farming. We need to encourage people to produce more food for themselves, be more self-reliant like they used to do. Okay? But the state is now in a position where it's starting to help. So there's a lot of assistance to help you now. And there is even more on the horizon nationally. So just so you know, the 2020 goals for the state mandate, this is the JOB Act. 20% increase in institutional local food purchasing, increased economic development, okay? So you're creating jobs for everyone, increased job opportunities. That's the mandate that we're trying to reach within the next few years, okay? So I wanted to introduce that to you, and before Brother Corey comes up and start dealing with the Farmers Market Association, any quick questions about what I presented? Yes?
75,000 plus farmers, are those the big farms? Or
No.
Those are the organic type?
That is big and little, small, commercial, commodity farmers, whether you're considered, we're such an export and commodity-driven farm economy or culture, that if you grow vegetables, you're considered, anybody know what the term is? Specialty crop.
I've heard the term hobby farmers.
Or hobby farmer, absolutely. Or truck patch farmer. Subsistence farmer.
Dirt farm.
You're not, for the longest time, you were not even considered a real farmer if you grew real food. Isn't that the weirdest thing? Because that's what the propaganda was put out by the big ag companies. Okay, so remember the earlier part. So we have to keep in mind where all that came, but the tide is turning. So now you're literally being considered as the savior of rural America, of the economic development, of the food crisis thing, the health crisis, because you're actually growing real food that people need for their nutrition. So you are the savior on a lot of levels. Trust me, people are watching you, and they're going to give you every kind of support that you need. Okay? Any other questions? All right. So thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and we can do, even if everybody is good, then I can turn it over. You don't need to stretch your eyeballs and your limbs. 5-minute break.